You let Teresi and his son get too close. This will kill Joey. Probably killed Benny, and now he's taken Elisa Marie. So it's on you to deliver this Tommy Egan to me.
She's providing guns for the Italians in the Lower East now.
Who are the Italians? That's the topic of discussion in today's breakdown after Drew made reference to Noma supplying guns to a bunch of Italians over on the Lower East Side of New York. And with them dropping this little hint that there are some Italians who Noma seems to be working with or supplying guns to, could we see them at some point in the next phase of the Power universe? I say next phase because with 2 episodes left, I'm not too sure how they would introduce a brand new set of characters, especially a mob like the Italians who run deep in New York. There is a rich history when it comes to the Italian Mafia, just like we're going to go through in this video. But could it be a setup for what comes next, especially because we do know a few certain Italians that still exist in the world of power, Elisa Marie Proctor and the Civello mob, which is run by her great uncle Carlo Civello. So in this breakdown, we're going to run it back to a breakdown I made well over a year ago, the Italian problem that still exists in the world of power. We're going to run through the history of the Italians from Power, a few real life examples, a couple of references from Power Book 2 Ghost and also Raising Kanan. We're then going to look at who these Italians could be and just how they could integrate them back into the story after Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4. Back in Power, we were introduced to a character named Vincent Ragni. He was born into the mob life after being the son of an old Italian gangster. He grew up around people like Sammy and Tony Teresi, who was a boss back when they were known as a Moscone crime family, or as they would call it in Italian, capo.
For any of you who don't know, this is the legendary Tony fucking Teresi. He's showing some goddamn respect.
Now when Tony Teresi was arrested, he was someone who actually stayed loyal to the Ragnis.
Your father's a good man. Kept his mouth shut and he's riding away in a prison cell to protect his family. Don't tarnish his name.
Now we all know what happened between Tommy and Vincent Ragni. Their relationship didn't get off to the best of starts after Tommy hired 2 of their young Italians to go after Dre. In fact, ever since Tommy realized he had a bit of Italian blood running through his veins, all he ever did was cause problems for Sammy, Vincent, and the Ragni family. Sammy was then taken off the chessboard by Tony Teresi. Teresi was found to be a snitch, with Tommy then taking care of his own father. And then Tommy took care of Vincent Ragni and the rest of his crew in an all-out bloodbath. So that's a brief history lesson into the Ragni family, formerly known as the Moscone family, from back in Power. Now just before we get into the Civello mob, who are currently alive and well in the world of Power, we need a brief history lesson on Joe Proctor, previously known as Joseph Joe Civello. After his father died in the 80s, his mom married a man whose last name was Proctor, and that's when Joe basically changed his surname from Civello to Proctor, but to also kind of hide his ties to the Italian crime family so he could pursue his career in law. So Joe Proctor is formerly a Civello, who also maintained a very good relationship with the crime part of his family. We were also later introduced to one of his cousins, Benny Civello, the brother of Aunt Dolores. He was killed by Tommy towards the end of Power, but the Civello family are still here, and they definitely aren't a family to be messed with.
To share with Carlo Civello?
The head of the Civello mob, that Carlo Civello?
He's my great uncle.
Of course he is. Of course he is.
Tommy was on a mission to find the recording that Joe Proctor left as a failsafe, and when he took Elisa Marie, she mentioned that her great uncle is Carlo Civello, the head of the Civello mob. And this reaction that we saw from Tommy when Elisa Marie mentioned who her great uncle was, I think speaks for itself. When someone like Tommy has this kind of reaction, similar to when he called Jukebox a crazy bitch, you probably know the Civello mob are definitely a family you probably don't want to be messing with. So with that being said, I just want you guys to keep the Civello family in the back of your minds, because it is something we are going to come back around to in just a moment. We are definitely going to be diving deeper into the Civellos. When it comes to the rise and fall of the Italian Mafia, it can be traced all the way back to the so-called 5 families. Many come from Sicily who actually settled for a spot on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, something which Drew made reference to in 408. But it's also why they now call it Little Italy. I actually visited last year and loved every bit of New York, but these 5 were very powerful families that ran New York for decades. They made money from legal businesses, but also illegal, such as various gambling spots to various different street operations. In doing so, they established a blueprint, and their crime then kind of spread across America. It was an organization that relied on fear to get what it wants, and if they had a dispute, they weren't afraid to handle it with a bullet, or, in Stefano's case, a fairness, something which still hasn't been used. Definitely something to keep in mind going forward for Raising Kanan Season 4 or 5. When it comes to the writing in Raising Kanan, they don't mention things for no reason. They will always tie up loose threads. But in regards to the crime families in New York, there was the Bonanno family, Colombo, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese. Now the way the Italians operate is very different. It's a mafia, not a gang. There's a clear hierarchy and a structure, with a godfather, a consigliere, the boss, capos, and then you kind of get down to the foot soldiers. And so far, in power, we've heard about the Ragni family, formerly known as the Mosconi family. We've also heard about the Civellos, and then in Raising Kanan, we've been introduced to Stefano Marchetti and the Bosellis. Again, we will come back around to them in just a second. Now fast forward to Drew's reference in Go Season 4. In conversation with Detective Carter, he mentioned that Noma supplies guns to the Italians over on the Lower East Side. And my question is, who are these Italians? Now I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get any answers either in episode 9 or 10. In fact, if we did, I would be quite shocked, because there are just way too many storylines going on at this moment in time to bring in the Italian Mafia. I mean, who knows, maybe they could. Assuming there was supposed to be a Season 5, and for argument's sake, if both Detective Carter and Noma are taken off the chessboard towards the end of Season 4, like most are predicting, they would then have to leave breadcrumbs and clues for maybe a new big bad to come in if they were getting a Season 5. And could that have actually been the Italians? With that being said, we know Season 4 is the last for Power Book 2 Ghost, but there is new spin-offs cooking with the help of Gary Lennon. So, could they actually take this little Easter egg that they dropped about the Italians, and how they're still the Civello mob, and tie it into the next Power Show? A new Power Show centered around the Italians, bringing a new fresh story where they can kind of dive deep into the rich history of the Italian crime syndicate in New York, but also tying it into the wider Power universe with a usual Power twist.
After you left the back door to your apartment open for dear old Uncle Tommy, my blood's on you too. Have you checked on Elisa Marie since you made her an orphan?
Joe Proctor made reference to how Tariq hasn't paid Elisa Marie a visit since he made her an orphan. That was in one of his hallucinations, and a while ago, I did create a thread over on X on how and why Elisa Marie still remains a big threat in the world of Power. Her father was gunned down by Tommy Egan after the back door to Ghost penthouse was left open by Tariq St. Patrick, and they did kind of leave the clues for this story to come full circle in Power 613. Tommy actually said to Elisa Marie he would understand if she came to see him about it at some point in the future. So, with both Ghost and Force actually coming to an end, could this actually be one of the major focuses in the next Power Show, the Italian Mafia angle? I mean, you have to assume that Elisa Marie would want to come back and talk to Tommy. She may even want to have words with Tariq at the same time. It also gives a chance to Gary Lennon and the writers to give us a really good, well-written story in regards to maybe the more modern stories in regards to the Italian crime families in New York. In Raising Kanan, we've got Stefano Marchetti, but the way they used to run things and do business back in the day is very different to kind of the present day. So, could this actually be a new focus in the new Power Show after Power Book 2 Ghost? Like I said before, the Civello family are still alive and well. Uncle Tommy kind of thought, oh shit, when he had the name Carlo Civello, and how he was Elisa Marie's great uncle. It really would be a great angle for them to explore, in my opinion. Exploring the rich history of the Italians, Tommy's connection because of his father Tony Teresi was Italian himself, giving us a real Italian mafia to the story, and also potentially tying it back to Elisa Marie and the Civello mob with Carlo Civello, Aunt Dolores, and whoever else. I really wouldn't mind if they kind of dive deeper with this particular story, but let's wait and see. I'm sure there is going to be an announcement that shortly follows Go Season 4, because if Season 4 ends on a cliffhanger, which I'm sure we can all assume it will, they have to give us an announcement to tell us exactly what's coming next. And the Italian Mafia story is something we can kind of just add to the drawing board of predictions or theories, I guess. So, that's a breakdown in regards to the history of the Italians across the Power universe, and how there's still so much more scope for the writers to play with in another Power Show post-Go Season 4. Whether it's something they're kind of cooking, I am hoping it is something they can tap into and bring it in as a storyline, because the Italian Mafia angle would really make for a great and different storyline. But with that being said, drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. Is there more to Drew mentioning the Italians in the Lower East? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.
And with that, Cent'anni.
alla lealtà e a famiglia. Cent'anni.